This is not just a war between two neighboring countries. This is one of the most important conflicts of the 21st century. On one side stands Russia, a nuclear superpower with vast territory, massive military strength, and decades of global influence. On the other side is Ukraine, a country that many believed would collapse within days, but instead chose to fight. This war is not only about land, it is about power, security, influence, and survival. Some believe Russia is winning because of its size. Others believe Ukraine is winning because of its resistance. But modern wars are not that simple. In this video, we will compare Russia and Ukraine in detail, their history, geography, military power, economy, global support, and future. By the end, you will understand why this war has no easy winner. Historical background. To understand this war, we must understand history. For most of the 20th century, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. Decisions were made in Moscow, not Kiev. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, and Ukraine became independent. This independence was legal, but never fully accepted by Russia. Ukraine slowly moved toward Europe, politically, economically, and militarily. Russia viewed this shift as a threat to its security and influence. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea. This action destroyed trust and diplomacy. From that moment, conflict never truly stopped. In 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion, expecting a quick victory. Instead, it triggered a long and costly war. This conflict is not sudden. It is the result of decades of tension, geography, and strategic importance. Geography is one of the most important factors in this war. Russia is the largest country in the world, stretching across Europe and Asia. Its size gives it strategic depth and natural resources. Ukraine, although smaller, is extremely important. It lies between Russia and NATO countries. It has access to the Black Sea. It is a major global food producer. For Russia, Ukraine acts as a buffer zone. For NATO, Ukraine is a frontline state. If Ukraine moves fully into the Western sphere, Russia loses strategic security. If Ukraine falls, NATO moves closer to Russia's borders. This makes Ukraine a central battleground in global geopolitics. This war is not local. It is strategic. Military manpower. Comparison. On paper, Russia appears far stronger when it comes to military manpower. Russia has more than 1 million active soldiers, supported by large reserve forces that can be mobilized during wartime. For decades, Russia has maintained one of the biggest standing armies in the world. Its forces have experience from past conflicts, military drills, and large-scale operations. From a purely numerical perspective, Russia enters the war with a clear advantage. Ukraine, however, started from a very different position. Before the war, Ukraine had a much smaller military compared to Russia. Its army was limited in size, equipment, and resources, but war has a way of changing everything. After the invasion, Ukraine launched massive mobilization efforts. Hundreds of thousands of people were called to serve. Teachers, engineers, office workers, and students became soldiers almost overnight. This transformed Ukraine's military from a small professional force into a nation in arms. Ukrainian soldiers are not fighting in foreign land. They are defending their own homes, families, streets, and cities. This creates a level of motivation that cannot be measured on paper. History repeatedly shows that armies defending their homeland often fight with greater determination than invading forces. They know what they are fighting for: survival. Russia may have larger numbers and heavier equipment, but Ukraine has unity, morale, and national purpose. In long wars, these human factors become just as important as weapons, because when a war drags on, motivation itself becomes a weapon. Defense budget and war financing. When it comes to war, firepower alone is not enough. Every war is ultimately a test of money and resources. On this front, Russia has a major advantage. Russia spends tens of billions of dollars every year on its military. It has a long-established defense industry capable of producing tanks, missiles, artillery, aircraft, and ammunition inside the country. This gives Russia strategic independence. Even under pressure, it can continue producing weapons without relying heavily on foreign suppliers. Russia also shifted its economy toward a war footing. Factories increased military production. Budgets were redirected from civilian sectors to defense. On paper, this allows Russia to sustain a long war. Ukraine, however, operates under a very different model. Before the war, Ukraine had a much smaller defense budget. It simply could not compete with Russia financially on its own. But Ukraine does not fight alone. Since the war began, Ukraine has received massive financial and military support from Western countries. This includes direct funding, advanced weapons, training programs, intelligence sharing, and logistical support. As a result, Ukraine's war budget is no longer limited to its own economy. It is supported by a network of powerful allies. This changes the balance completely. Russia is funding the war largely on its own. Ukraine is fighting with the backing of multiple advanced economies. In modern warfare, this difference is crucial. Wars are not won in weeks. They are won over years. And in long wars, who can afford to keep fighting often matters more than who strikes first. Money does not guarantee victory, but running out of money guarantees defeat. Weapons and technology comparison. Modern wars are no longer decided only by the size of armies. They are increasingly decided by technology, speed, and information. In this area, the war between Russia and Ukraine reveals a major shift in how conflicts are fought. Russia relies heavily on traditional military strength. It uses large quantities of artillery, tanks, armored vehicles, cruise missiles, and long-range rocket systems. This reflects Russia's long-standing military doctrine, overwhelming force through firepower. Russia also possesses advanced weapons, including long-range missiles and sophisticated air-launch systems. These weapons allow Russia to strike targets deep inside enemy territory. Ukraine, however, has taken a very different approach. Instead of matching Russia weapon for weapon, Ukraine focuses on precision and innovation. Drones play a central role. Small, low-cost drones are used for surveillance, targeting, and direct attacks. These drones guide artillery fire, locate enemy positions, and even destroy tanks and vehicles worth millions of dollars. This has changed the battlefield completely. Ukraine also benefits from real-time intelligence and satellite data provided by its partners. This allows Ukrainian forces to react quickly and strike accurately. The result is a new form of warfare. Expensive weapons are being destroyed by cheap technology. Large formations are vulnerable to small, intelligent systems. This war proves one critical lesson. In the 21st century, technology and adaptability can neutralize numerical superiority. Weapons still matter, but how they are used matters even more. Air power and missile war. Air power plays a crucial role in modern warfare, and in this conflict, it has become a battle of pressure rather than complete control. On paper, Russia has a major advantage in the air. Russia operates a large fleet of fighter jets, bombers, and long-range aircraft. It also possesses a wide range of cruise missiles and ballistic missiles capable of striking targets far from the front lines. These weapons allow Russia to hit military bases, supply routes, and critical infrastructure deep inside Ukraine. The goal is not only to weaken the army, but also to exhaust the country's ability to function. However, air superiority has not translated into total dominance. Ukraine entered the war with a much smaller and older air force. Instead of trying to challenge Russia directly in the skies, Ukraine focused on defense. Advanced air defense systems became a key part of Ukraine's strategy. Missiles and drones were intercepted. Aircraft were forced to operate more cautiously. As a result, Russia's air power became less effective than expected. At the same time, missile and drone attacks turned the war into a battle of endurance. Power plants, bridges, fuel depots, and transportation networks became targets. This kind of warfare aims to break morale and weaken society, not just defeat soldiers. Air power in this war is not about quick victory, it is about long-term pressure. The side that can protect its skies better, repair damage faster, and maintain civilian morale gains a critical advantage. In modern conflicts, controlling the air is important, but surviving air attacks may matter even more. Economy and sanctions. In this war, economic pressure has become a powerful weapon. The goal was clear: weaken Russia's ability to fund and sustain the war. Russia is one of the world's largest energy producers. Oil and gas exports continued, especially to non-Western markets. Energy revenues helped stabilize the economy and finance military spending. Russia adjusted by redirecting trade, increasing domestic production, and shifting its economy toward long-term wartime survival. Ukraine faced a different economic reality. Large parts of Ukraine's economy were damaged or destroyed. Factories stopped operating. Infrastructure was hit. Millions of people were displaced. Ukraine's economic survival now depends heavily on international assistance. Foreign aid pays salaries, supports public services, and keeps the state functioning. Russia fights under sanctions, but with its own resources. Ukraine fights with global financial backing. Both models are fragile in different ways: global support, alliances, and world politics. From the beginning, Ukraine received strong political, military, and economic support from Western nations. These countries view Ukraine not just as a partner, but as a frontline state defending a wider security order. Weapons, intelligence, training, and financial aid flowed into Ukraine. This support allowed Ukraine to continue fighting despite heavy losses and economic damage. For Western countries, supporting Ukraine is about more than this war. It is about deterring future aggression and maintaining credibility. Russia, on the other hand, found itself increasingly isolated from much of the Western world. Diplomatic relations weakened. Economic ties were reduced. However, Russia was not completely alone. Several countries maintained political or economic cooperation with Russia, choosing neutrality or strategic engagement. This allowed Russia to avoid total isolation and continue key trade relationships. The war also changed global military planning. Defense budgets increased worldwide. Nations reassessed security risks and alliance commitments. In the end, there may be no true winner, only survivors of a long and costly conflict.